Welcome to another edition of Commentary. Today we're going to talk about institutions and Western institutions in particular. Institutions dominate our life and tell us what we can and can't do, and, you know, tend to wish to run everything because they can. Um, but there's a dark side to institutions that we need all of us to be aware of. There's a wonderful academic in the United States named Clay Shirky. He's one of the really brilliant minds of the 20th and 21st century, and he, as a sociologist for NYU, studied institutions, and he had this remarkable statement to make, and I really want you to pay attention here. Clay Shirky says, institutions will always try to preserve the problem for which they are the solution. Think about that. Institutions will preserve the problem for which they are the solution. And that makes them self-centered. And we must begin to realize this, because these institutions are not going to last. They can't. They are all self-centered at core. So how do a lot of these institutions that govern us begin? Well, they start very often with social movements. Take a look at any social movement over the last century, let's say, and you will find that they have become institutionalized. And here's how that happens. Social movements don't end with victory. Never happens. Social movements wane because the people who are involved in those social movements sense victory. They can smell victory. They're so close. But when that happens, human beings being what we are, people tend to drift away from concentration on that particular issue, thinking that it's on the verge of success. But it never happens. Social movements find themselves in a very awkward position because nobody's following them anymore. And so social movements institutionalize themselves in order to keep the commentary and the thinking going about these issues. But the problem is that with institutions, the issue isn't job number one. Maintaining the institution is their primary focus. So you see a shift away from the issues that were being discussed with the social movement to support for the institution itself. And in that way, institutions become self-centered. They have to be, because job one is to support the institution. And that, as I say, is a very self-centered position, and life doesn't care about it, doesn't care for it. They drift away. Many of these social movements involve the poor and the afflicted in our world. And they get ignored because those social movements become institutionalized. And then the support and care of the institution becomes their primary focus. So nowhere is this seen more than our political world. But politics isn't the only institution that is self-centered. How about the law? The legal system, our institution of the law, certainly self-centered, especially since we have lawyers, of all things, in our legislature making laws that they then practice in the judicial branch. So the law is very much a self-centered institution. It works on behalf of lawyers, plain and simple, not us. Medicine, the whole concept of health is an institution. And this includes third-party insurance. These are institutions that are profit-oriented, not on behalf of the people that they claim to serve. Third-party insurance requires a little bit more discussion. The idea that somebody else should pay for your health tickles the ears of human beings, but those organizations, insurance companies, are incredibly self-centered. Do you honestly believe that the big insurance companies of today have enough money to pay off all the claims that might be made towards them? The answer is of course not, because they're using that money to get rich. So, and as I said, government is another institution that is incredibly corrupt and self-centered. How are we to deal with a self-centered government? You know, because that drifts over into our politics, because everybody who is in power wants, first of all, to stay there. And I could talk forever about that, and maybe I will someday, but, and then there's the institution of business. My goodness, that profit governs everything in the West. And tell me that profit isn't self-centered. Oh, well, Terry, they're making money for everybody else. What kind of a life are they making for everybody else? Come on, you can't throw a rock without hitting somebody who's got difficulties with life today. Institutions don't help, folks. And we need to do something about that. And I think that's why I have such faith in young people today, because surely they recognize that they're all being duped. And I'm hearing lots of comments from young people saying, why must we continue with this? So here's the bottom line for the future. Young people have at their disposal something that we and all previous generations never had. And that is the horizontal connectivity provided by the internet. So let me tell you, when John Wycliffe finished his first common language translation of the Bible, he said, "This book shall make possible government of the people, by the people, and for the people." Of course, that's just a line in history now. But there really is the possibility of government of the people, by the people, and for the people if the future uses the internet properly, and if it can overcome the clout of the institutions to stop it, especially the institution of the law. So it's going to be a wild ride for those who live on into the 21st century and beyond. I won't be here to see it, but I am absolutely convinced that a revolution, not an evolution, a revolution is pending. And if you think the counterculture movement of the 60s had something to say, wait until these people find their way into positions of leadership, not management. Because leaders are what we really need in the world today, and they are not self-centered. They are leaders tend to be concerned more about others than themselves. So have a great rest of the day, and may God bless you. Of course, I have to end this like I do all of mine by the disclaimer that I could be wrong, because I'm just a commentary.